Hello, hello. Sorry I'm a few minutes late, um, but I'm here now. I'm just trying to get my stuff set up here. I was actually early getting things ready and then lost track of time, so I apologize. um, let's see. The YouTube layout has been a bit weird for me to figure out lately. They've done a lot of weird things. So I'm trying to find Creator Studio and get into that so I can see. All right. So, I have started the stream. I'll wait and see for a second or two here if we get anybody to join. But in the meanwhile, I will be looking at what I've got going here. Well, it looks like I did have somebody join. So hello, hello, and welcome to the stream. Today, as you can see on the camera here, we're going to be working at the beginning entry area here. I've got my relay boards connected in. I've got some of the turret or the terminal strips here set up for these preamp tubes as well. I also prepped myself a coaxial cable. This is of the style. It's not the exact ones that Dumble used, but it's the style he used, which are just pretty much almost like what you use your for cable, but it has a very thick, nice connector in the middle. It has grounding on the end. I'll be able to solder a wire onto the end of this and ground that, and then this will come into the input section over here. I don't know how visible that is, but down in that corner back here, I'll try and adjust my angle of this guy a little bit. The angulation there. So hopefully, that's almost too bright now. It's washing it out. Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and start connecting this input section on this side. I'm not worried yet about getting to this end here. We'll get to that a little later. Because I also have to get to these guys and hook it in when I get that input jack. I still have not received that. I ordered as you remember from last stream, if you saw it, I was missing an input jack and I'm missing two 100K resistor or 100K potentiometers. So I'll be able to, start wiring in some of this stuff over at this side to prep it for the board. I won't be soldering some of the things because the board will connect to them, and we'll look at the layout of that. In fact, I'll jump over the layout of that quickly so that you guys can see. The layout is right here. So if you look at the layout, we're going to be working in this general area here, and we may even start doing some of this part right here as well, because I did have I'll show you again in a second afterwards. I have connected in these components as well while we're offline, because screwing in things and drilling holes is not as exciting. So I have all of these tubes set up. The wires that are coming off the board won't be connected, but I'll basically be able to, for example, take this 68K, solder it into this socket, and connect it physically through this one, so that when I put the board in, connecting to there, it'll be just connecting and then soldering. Same with this, although for some reason right now, I know I ordered 180K resistors. I can't find them. That's why I was a little late. I was trying to find this one, but and then we'll also basically connect all of this up, this negative feedback right here, this local negative feedback setup, and then I won't solder it here because there's a blue wire going off, but I'll clean that and solder it in there, and then connect that through across. I will be able to do this 220K and the 500 picofarad, so all of those will be able to be soldered in and connected, that kind of stuff. So we're going to start doing that here shortly. I did order the stuff for the foot switch also, and you can see that in this bottom right corner but I don't have the parts for that. That's also on its way in. But I do have this connection, and I have the foot switches themselves in the case coming. So those will be here shortly. So, all right. So I will go ahead and switch back so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to think. I might try and make that guy now just a bit smaller so it stays up on the screen in the general corner here, so you guys can see what it is that I'm working on. I'll put it down. Well, I kind of want to move that right about there because this is the general area we'll be working on today. And then I can kind of come and slide this up a little bit more into the corner like this. All right. So that stays up for you guys to see what we're working on. So first move I think I will do, I'm going to wait to put this guy in until I have the connections done down there. But I'll set that aside. All right, so first thing I actually need to do is turn on my fan. That will probably annoy a lot of you guys. I apologize ahead of time, but I need to be able to breathe. So I will put this guy up here and turn it on. So apology for the noise. And turn my soldering iron on. All right. So let's see. So why not me wants to know about input and output jacks and grounding and such. So on the, do you want me to kind of go over this particular schematic or kind of cover them just in general on how you wire them? Why not? I can actually pull this back out. This one has a pretty weird, has a pretty weird input jack. Oops, that's not what I wanted to move. Has a pretty weird jack segment. We're going to go ahead and make this big full screen again. And then I can come up here. Part of what is complex with this one is because of the FET input, they have a, if you notice, it's not a standard switching jack. It is a dual stereo style switching jack. Okay, in general. So it's actually a very good thing to chat about because we will be starting to make some of those connections probably on my next video. I have some empty regular jacks, and I can kind of explain how those work in the normal use cases that we use for most guitar amps. So this FET input makes it a little more complex, and I'll try and cover that as well. But effectively, I'll show you up close hopefully first. Now, let me quickly hide this screen, or at least re-shrink it the way I was going to do that before. Stop it. Oh, I'm up in the, I'm not down in my actual window here. Come on, mouse, go. So, make that small. We'll put that back up here out of the way. So effectively, your input jacks, and I'll have to kind of refocus because I want you to see closely what I'm doing here. So I'll adjust the focus. This is a standard input jack. It's also used as speakers. It only has two connections, and then this tip part, and so there's the tip and the ground. The tip of the jack would go here, and then that connects to this lead here. So you would solder to this lead, and then this would go to ground. And a quick, easy test of that is to get a multimeter on continuity mode, and just touch this and touch either one of those and see which one is the one that gives you the beep. That is a very simple one to use. That's a common one on speakers because they, if it's just a simple speaker output jack, it just needs to have the tip connected and the output. Then if you move to what's called a switch jack, it has three connections. And the reason for that is if you can see, you get into the light a little bit. Can you see that blade? Trying to see how clear. There, that's a little bit clearer. So right here, there's a blade that sets next to this tip one that was on the other one. And that is the third connection point. And if you apply gentle pressure of the jack coming in, when the jack itself is, when you put your tip of the thing in like that, it will press this away and break that connection. So that switch is closed until you do that. But what is a good thing to do quite often with input jacks is to ground that so that there's no noise until you put the jack in and that tip separates away that blade, and therefore you have an open connection, and now you can play music that'll let the input in, but it keeps things clean. The complexity of this specific thing now is that with the FET circuit, if you look at that, you need to have the input coming from the jack and then the output going to the other input jack and through. But you have to have this switching, and it's complex switching, so you kind of need two switches on the FET input and then the one switch on the standard input to make sure that if you plug to the FET, you're not causing the other input to have problems, and if you're plugging the other input, the FET itself will just be muted and sent to ground. So for your first amp, it just has a single input. Now, Fender jacks also are done a little differently, but this is not the kind of build here where they actually will connect the two jacks together in a slightly different way. That's kind of a little bit more complicated topic that I could definitely cover in on as well. But that tip part, that switched part can be a bit complicated, and it can confuse people. Effectively, let me show you kind of with a continuity mode on a multimeter really quickly. So if I put my multimeter on continuity mode, which is in mine, it's this little beep icon, it means if I touch two leads together, they will beep. And that says that I have a connection. So this means you'll hear that beeping noise. So if you connect to a switch jack, if you connect to, that's the ground. So the center one I think is the switch. So now if I touch here, I get continuity mode. But if I get an actual jack, like I have one sitting here, and I push it through this, what ends up happening is the jack, you'll see, has now not got continuity, and since I'm on this tip, I no longer get the beep. But if I touch the other one, that's the ground, this one, oh sorry, if I touch this inner one, I beep. But I don't on the outer one now because this has separated two. Similarly, this is the actual connection to the tip. The tip gives me beep, but it doesn't connect and beep down here. But as soon as I pull this jack out, those both are connecting to each other, and I will get a beep on either one. Does that make sense how that switching jack works? That's the kind of gist of how a switching jack works and why they're awesome. But the one that I have to use for the Fed input is a dual switch jack that has multiple switches on either both tip and on. It's a if you've ever seen stereo jacks, they actually have unlike this one, which is a mono jack, it only has one, the tip and the sleeve. But you'll see there's some that are called tip ring sleeve. They'll have a little cut in again, and there's another one that'll be if you're using left and right channels in ground. So that's kind of the difference between those two. Does that make sense? No, if you're grounded to the chassis and you run a ground wire, two grounds won't cause a short because they're both just grounds. They're just a different path for the ground. A short happens if you connect anything that's a grounding lead to an area that's not supposed to be grounded, like your input. So, you know, in the same case of this jack, if you were to connect the ground to the tip, to the sleeve, to the switching one, it is grounded, yes, but there's nothing plugged into it. But as you saw, the second I plug that jack in, it separates it away and it's no longer grounded. There are problems you'll find in amps occasionally where there is no sound. That's usually a really old amp where basically this has become so flex over time and use that they basically stay connected afterwards. You have to kind of rebend them a little bit to kind of get that fixed. But does that kind of make sense? Why not me? All right. I also did have, there's one of my videos, I think it's just called Fender Input Jacks, where I cover a little bit about how the Fender Input Jack works. If that's the stuff you're doing as a Fender, it will explain that a little bit better. All right, jumping back to the Dumble fun. What I first need to connect here is, let me go back and refresh the screen back to where we're going to be working today. So I'm going to need to get a 22K resistor on the first one, and that's where my main input comes in. And sadly, I don't know why, I only have 22K 2-watt ones in my ordering process. I know I needed some for something else. I think it was used earlier in the build as a dropper. But that's all I have is the 2Ks. So we get to use a really big resistor for this guy. So I will do that right now. Yeah, no problem. You're very welcome. And I would be very happy to also, this is the kind of thing that I appreciate the feedback of you asking questions. I might even start trying to do some live streams where I will focus on a generic topic instead of this build, and then I will just kind of open it up for questions of people. I'm still always looking for any questions anybody has to help people understand that stuff. But in this case, I'm just, I would definitely think that those kinds of questions are great and I cover them, but I also think that maybe people would like some live streams focused just on that. All right, I need to refocus now that I was dialed into that other part. All right, does that look good to everybody? Let me know if that doesn't. But all right, so as you can see in the top corner now, we're going to focus on this little area down here at the bottom with the switches and whatnot. I'm going to first be right here, which is connecting. I'm going to connect that resistor from here to the input, which is the pin 2, the grid right there. If that's, I think that the heater wires are kind of blocking that view a little bit, but and I want to get a little light, not totally blast it out and make it totally washed out. But all right, so let me first get that guy in there. And it looks like, luckily, I have already a small hole in that so that it should be not too hard to get through whatever I'm trying to say. All right, get my pliers. So this is the 22K. That's from the first primary input. And let me get the soldering iron out. And again, I will always harp on this, but make sure your soldering iron is clean. And another standard practice that will really help your soldering as you're learning is to also pre-wet the tip. If you pre-wet the tip, it gets a little bit of extra liquid there of the solder in a liquid form, and that allows it to basically have a larger connection surface area onto the actual area you're soldering. Alright, I think we got... give myself a little bit of light there. Looks good. Alright, and then we'll let that harden. And that, again, I apologize, that is kind of washing it out. I might dial back I like the extra light, but I might dial back the exposure a little bit so that it's not so harsh. Does that look a little better? I hope. It looks to me like that's a little bit better. But now we're well lit. Alright. So, the other connection we need to do is a 220K and a 500 picofarad capacitor between the other grid of the tube. Oh, you know what? This is actually, I'm going to have to be careful of this. If you look at that in the picture, pins 1, it's actually wanting, the tube is in the Dumble is almost reversed, but which side of the triode you use doesn't ultimately matter. My grid, or my pin 2 is what I just connected to, and that's my main put. But the return from the second half of that gain stage is the second half. So let me kind of use the mouse to that in the picture so you see what I'm talking about. Right? Oh, come on, mouse, stop. I want the full size. All right, so right here, if you look, this is what I just soldered in. But the problem is that's pin 7, not pin 2, and this is pin 2. But again, they're just two triodes, and half of the triode does the same job. So I'll just have to remember that I've inverted these and not get myself confused when I'm connecting, for example, this blue board connection right here. When it comes off that board, I need to make sure I connect that to the, not pin, I think that's pin, what would that be, 6. It'll instead go to pin 1, and vice versa. But I've just kind of swapped halves of the triodes. So I'm now going to get this 500 picofarad and the 220K and hook that up on the other side. Oh, I did not get my noise reading. I'm going to turn off this fan for a minute. I'm going to get my capacitor noise reading here. So, and you guys have seen me probably do that before, but I will do it right here because I need to do it. So I've got the capacitor connected into this, and then you just have to get it so that actually I can maybe turn this up so you guys, no I can't because I'm GOTS blocking. Alright, so I'm getting an obvious noise wave there. If I switch sides, let's see if it changes. Yes, it's significantly smaller this way. So this is the ground. So right now, I can't show you the screen, but like when I've connected this here, and I've connected that there, it had significantly higher, I could actually see a sine wave kind of noise being picked up by my hand and magnified through it. But now with it at this side, it's not. So I just want to quickly take a magic marker, and find my marker, and mark that side so that I know that is the side that goes to what would be either the input side or the lower impedance side, because that reduces noise. What that is that's the outer shell of the capacitor, and any stray noise that comes into the capacitor, because capacitors can act somewhat like a microphone, will get sucked up into that shielded side and then pulled back to ground. So in this case, looking at that would be back towards the previous stage. So I want that wired towards the this little guy here, that back end. And then this is going to go pin. All right, so this is what this is in right now. So I'll have to pull that out and clean that socket really quickly. I'm going to turn the fan back on again. will probably end up removing that later, but for now, I need to kind of solder wick this. There we go, I got that nice and clean now. Okay, so I will be able, oops, drop my thing there. All right, so let me go ahead and get that capacitor now and put that between here and there. And these are a little in my way, but it's not the end of the world. Trying to think of how I might actually want to put the resistor, because the resistor will kind of act as a locker for the, well, no, the resistor is pretty small too. Anyway, we'll get it in there. Alright, so, you know, I don't know. Oh, this is what happens when you magnetize things and are working on drilling on metal chassis. Look at that, that's pretty ugly. And I ended up getting some good slivers in my hand just today, earlier cleaning up, because I was prepping a lot of these drillings beforehand. So I'm going to use a towel to wipe off all of those instead. Alright, just trying to open this resistor package. When I order these, they come in a package of 5, and so gotta get that out. Alright. Alright, so that back aside for a minute. Alright, so this will go in here. So if you look, that is a potential danger area right there. I need to have some way of putting that in and still connecting outwards without it touching this, because this will be, I think that's going to be the ground. I'm trying to remember which pin is the ground. Yeah, that's the ground. So I effectively, if I'm not careful, I'll basically, if these two touch each other, I will ground out that completely. So I need to kind of figure a way to do something like this, so that the body of the resistor is touching and can't ground out as easily on that other pin. Although, you know, what's tricky about that is I have to also get stuff into there to solder that connection. So I might have to be more inventive and go kind of like this. If you can see what I'm doing there, I'm kind of bending it upwards and over. So there is a very clear distance between them, hopefully, if that goes right. And then where did I put there it is. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of good videos on the internet about coupling, about any capacitor. The coupling capacitors are especially important because kind of what goes to the next gain stage and gets magnified even more. But any capacitor, this one's not a coupling capacitor, this is just a capacitor that's kind of filtering the input a little bit, so this is kind of coming into this, but still also can allow noise to come in. So you want to make sure you do that correctly. I think I will try to kind of pull off something like this, where I put both of these in at a little bit of angle, and then that lead I'll make sure I kind of pull up. Oh, these it's the way Fender does their heater wires is kind of a bit of a pain in the butt to work with sometimes, but alright, so I'll go ahead and solder those in now, and then I can kind of let that cool and move things around. And then I will try and prettify it a bit afterwards. And then another tricky part is going to be trying to solder this without damaging those heater wires that are in place already. Alright, the blob is kind of, I'm trying to heat it a little bit more so that it gets, yeah, there we go, that's much better. Alright, so while that's getting cooled down and hardened, I can then come back to this guy, snip off the excess lead on it, And like I said, I'll come in and solder this, but I'm going to last because it's bulky and in my way. So only after I've kind of completed the other stuff will I can connect that one in. All right. So next is the connecting those guys back over. So I will try first to make that nice and neat angle away. And as you see, a part of what I'm trying to do there is also get a very good pinched connection, because you want to make sure that there is a physical connection as well as your soldered connection. The solder should be more than anything designed to be a little bit of glue around the joint, but not what makes the connection. It's what keeps the connection from vibrating loose over time or popping out, not what actually does the physical connection itself. Getting into there with this heater wire in place. So one of the things I told myself I'd do is not touch those heater wires, because that's my least favorite part of amp building, is putting the heater wires in. It's very tedious work. But it does mean this is going to be a bit more of a pain in the butt. Oh, I didn't want to solder that exactly yet. I guess I've tacked them on the top. I'll have to, when I get my actual connection from the board in there, I'll solder a little bit better, but that should tack them in place for me. Alright. Thanks, Phenom. Good to see you back. Missed you last time. Alrighty. So, one of the things I'm wondering, and maybe you guys can tell me, is if my live stream timing isn't necessarily the best. I think our first live stream I did was more of a weeknight, and I got, I think, quite a bit, like maybe 12 or 14 people at a time at one point, and I had up to 20-something total to the stream. Whereas on the Saturdays, I tend to get more like 4 to 6 people, or something like that. So I would definitely like you guys to let me know if you think there's a better time in the week to do it. I was kind of thinking I might start trying to do it Thursday nights instead. So anyway, let me know. Or maybe if I just should be putting out notices a little bit earlier instead of kind of last minute night before. Okay, so as you can see there, I just finished connecting the 220K and 500 picofarad. I've done the 22K, so now we've got this little 0.047 microfarad and then 4 10 meg resistors. So, where are my 10 megs? They're right here. So I need a total of 4 of these guys. Alright. So this is, you're retired, so it doesn't matter. Well, then that's perfect. So, all right. So this one will connect into the high voltage pin, and if this is, tell me if the best way I can explain this so that it makes sense is, if you look at this picture, you'll see the input that's coming in that I just saw, that 220K 500 picofarad. That's the input coming off of the previous stage. That then connects, goes through the triode and out through the anode, which is the pin below it, pin 1 in this case. It'll be pin, I think it's 6 on the other side, because I've swapped tubes as I mentioned earlier. But what happens is that blue lead is what high voltage comes in, but also your signal goes out. So there's output signal that also, the way Dumble did this is he takes those 2 10 meg resistors, which really means small amount of current can flow. It's 20 megs in series, right? So 20 megs of resistance, very high resistance, so a very teeny bit of signal will go through a 047 microfarad capacitor. When you send signal through a capacitor, it also adjusts the frequency with which it targets. And then he's sending it back through another 2 more total of 20 meg or 2 10 meg resistors back to the input where it just came in. So that's what's called local feedback. But the reason it's negative is that in a triode tube, when the signal comes in, it inverts coming out of the anode, but it stays the same in the cathode. So if you've ever heard the term cathode follower, the cathode follows the signal. So if the sine wave was at its peak up, the output at the exact same time of the cathode would also be at its peak up, but on the anode, it's the peak completely down. It's opposite. Reversed, inverted signal. So he takes that inverse back in through that heavy resistance and a filtering capacitor to reduce it down to a very smaller bandwidth and injects it back into the grid, which creates negative feedback. And it's very targeted, very small amount, but that also increases headroom significantly on that stage so that you get a lot cleaner, better sound out of it. So, you know, he's making sure that your input signal is super clean before it gets into the overdrive section, if you're going to use the drive section. So that's a very smart trick he's used. It's very easy to do this if you want to try it. And you can also try tweaking that 0.047 capacitor to different values and see how it changes the tone of that as well. All right. So now that I've gone blabbering about that for a minute, let's go ahead and actually hook it up. So I need to do a 10 meg from, let's see, this would be pin, just trying to remember which pin it is here. Okay, so it's this is the pit's kind of behind these guys. So I'm going to have to take one through there. I think I might come from the opposite side on purpose, somewhat like this, so they don't potentially run into those guys and short ourselves out. And let me gently also, I'm going to take something and bend that guy down a teeny bit. That way that gives us even more clearance. And I have to kind of clean off that old solder connection so that I can easily put the leads through. So, a little solder wick to save the day. There we go, cleaned out the hole. That also kind of cleans up old flux and junk when you use a solder wick as well, like that. All right. So, let's do that guy. Where did I just put it? I had that 10 meg resistor in my hand. I bent it funny like I was going to use it. I probably set it down here somewhere like a dummy. Oh, there it is. Down on the bench. All right. So, I don't want to solder this one in because as I've mentioned before, this is one of the ones where I will be bringing the input in, but I'm at least trying to get the resistor in through it correctly for now. So we'll do it like that. And then this one over here is going to be my ground, but that will go through a separate wire. And then I have a 0.047 microfarad capacitor somewhere I didn't grab yet, I think. Did I? No, I didn't. Let me grab that out of my box of goodies, because that's going to be what goes in line there. Oh, I think I might have that one already up here. Come on. Well, of course I can't find it now. Let me double check that I'm not being silly here. This is the fun thing of ordering a project with parts lists that's this big, is that it can become quite fun trying to make sure you get everything right and in the right place. And it's 022. Huh. I am not seeing it here. You guys get to hear me scrambling to try and find it. I do have one that's like a 562, but that's not quite right either. But I might have to deal with that because I can't find it. It's also possible somewhere along the lines, and this is something I've done before, I accidentally used it in a different location on the amp. I might have, if I go back up here and look, there may be one that's like a So yeah, so this is supposed to be 0.05, which is almost the same as 0.047. On the board, I used them, but I might have accidentally just miscounted. Yeah, I'm using 562. So that that's annoying. I will be able to use this, I guess. It is going to change the tonality of that, possibly. So instead of being a 0.047, it's going to be a 0.056. It's not the same, and if I don't like the noise or the way it sounds, if I feel like something's not right, I guess I'll have to change that. But for now, I'm going to have to deviate. I thought I had all of these corrected, but I don't. Oh no, I think I remember that the Fender had one in here that I can use. That's 0.0047. I swear there was a 0.047 somewhere that I was thinking would be good for this. Yes, here it is. So, this was in the original Fender Bassman. It's a 200 volt 0.047. This will do the job for me. So, that connects... let's go ahead and bring that back down so you can see what I'm back at now. So, I will use this original Fender one. So, I'm going to need to... And what he's done, if you look at that picture, is just connected the 10 megs to this and then kind of like glued this to the board. So I will kind of do something similar. So we'll get that right now. No, that's not just you. I seem to find a way of losing things constantly. And part of it is because my shop desk area here is just a nightmare. Alright. I'm going to quickly solder that guy on. I don't know how visible that is to you guys right here, but... Alright. Now I can invert this. Yeah, I remember that there was some of these things that I looked at and I just said, I won't need to do that because I have an equivalent already in the circuit of the amp. So all right, let's clean the tip a little bit. And I also, I kind of wonder, for me, I like watching a lot of these longer type videos. I don't know how interesting they are for other people, but I also wonder if the live streaming is necessarily the best, because if I edit these videos, I can just fast forward through a lot of the stuff that I'm doing that's really slow and tedious work like this, and it's not as boring. But, you guys can, I guess there's a few people here wanting to watch it, so welcome along for the ride of medium. All right, so that's now done, so I can just snip those excess leads. So, geez, you can see yet again, I've gotten a ton of this magnetic. I've got to clean off my desk of all this, or my bench of all this, little bits of metallic leads everywhere, or the drill leavings, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so there's that guy. And what I'll do is I'll basically be able to go into here with this side, saw that in, and then I'll put the other side over here and connect another 10 meg from there back to the grid that I... Oh wait, is it the one I already soldered in? It is, yeah, so that was a bonehead move of mine, but we'll fix that. But for now, Just got to see how much room I'll have. Just want to, there we go. All right, so let me make sure I can get bends on these guys. All right, solder that together. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. You like hearing all the details. Can't please everyone, that's true. Live stream and record are both good. Yeah, I enjoy watching live streams myself. I like to game, for example, and I like watching Twitch stuff. And some people are even telling me that I should try Twitch as well. But the tricky part is that Twitch, I don't know that I would engage the same kind of audience there, and I don't know if the people that are here right now, for example, would be into even looking into Twitch. So it could work, and it could bite me. And I think you can also kind of concurrently stream to both, but I'd have to look into that. All right. So now I've got to try and carefully get this wet enough for me to slip this guy through if I can. Ah. There we go. Up. Just get a little bit more solder on that tip so that I feel like it's connected well. Reflow it a bit. There we go. Get that cool. And now I can, one of the things I tended to do before is I used to really move the joints a lot right after I'd solder them. I would find out that would cause some bad dry soldered connections. So now I solder a joint and I try and move on to something else and then come back after and clean up the leads, which is what I'm kind of doing now. I also remembered I soldered here and I can clean these up. Because if you clip them too soon, then you can basically cause them to have problems later down the line. So, all right, and that's probably cooled off. I did a little kind of a tech tip soldering video and I showed dry soldered connection on purpose. So the dry soldering is pretty visible. Like it'll go from, instead of being a bright shine, looking thing, to looking just dull gray. If you ever see that on your own amp or other people's, take a second, reflow it again, get it shiny, don't and then let it kind of settle down naturally and cool down naturally. All right, so now that last guy, let's see if we can find a way to carefully get this lead. Oh wow. That's called cutting it close. I'm like literally barely in the hole. There, I got it to bend at least a bit. Yeah, we got a physical connection. Cool. So what I will do, you don't want loose connections like the long run, and just like he has on this picture, I will put a little bit of silicone down on this, and I will lock it in place so it can't go anywhere. Well, I'm glad to have you guys along for the ride, and I appreciate the feedback. I'm trying to make this more fun for everybody. I am enjoying doing it. I like building them. I think it takes me a little longer to build them when I do this type of stuff, but I think it's worth it as it's one of the things I love about like YouTube and the internet in general is that's where I've found a lot of my knowledge I can quickly attribute to being able to find it on the internet, and that's the most amazing thing about the internet. So, and I will never really get too overly political on this channel, but for the internet to me is one of the most important things that anybody of any belief system needs. So I'll stop pontificating at that point. All right, so those are all connected, and I think I might feel comfortable at this point now trying to come in and solder this guy. Is there anything else I'll have to go? I think getting my grounding wire there could be fun, but we'll pray that it's not too hard. Okay. Let's go ahead and solder that in. Oh, I got some buildup of black goop. Got to clean the tip again. One of the things that's in here is I can't see. I want to make sure I get enough solder to fill the entire hole, but I can't quite see. Oh, I think I did it there. Okay, cool. And now I've got to also remember to get in and kind of snip out this excess lead so it's not hanging around. Come on. There we go. All right. So now what I can do, this is a good test, by the way. If you ever want to know a good way to test, hey, did I just make a good connection here? I like to do continuity test. Put it in continuity mode so you hear the beep. And I'm going to turn the fan off just long enough for you guys to hear the beeping. I will do a test, not at the exact solder point, but on the leads to see. So I'm going to touch this lead of this resistor, if you can see me doing that. It's like, so I'm still getting a direct wire connection, and then I'm going to touch the other end here. I'm getting a good connection. I also will touch the ground. Sorry, it was touching the ground there. But I see how I'm getting nope. That means also my shielding wire is intact and working. That shielding wire will be connected to ground eventually so that we, get that cleared out. But all right, so that soldered connection is good. I will eventually, when I'm doing this, kind of tuck this guy down and over here, and then it's going to come up and hook into my input jack down there. So, but that'll kind of put that like that out of the way. Once I've soldered in, I have to solder in some things down in there still. So. All right, let's see, next. So now we're going to do this guy. As I mentioned, I'm missing the 180K, which is kind of annoying, but I will do the 68K. Man, I cannot read that. Is that 270 nanofarad? All right, let me look at the schematic. Let's go ahead and pull up the schematic because that's one of those things that I definitely need from time to time. So we're going to look at, this is going to be the first tube in the overdrive. And there is a 270 picofarad capacitor between the grid, between the anode and the cathode on both of those sides. So I probably have those sitting in here somewhere. Let's grab those and find them. Make sure we put those in. Okay, awesome. I have one in there, which means I accidentally pulled one out and used it somewhere I shouldn't have, I'm sure. What's this guy? That's a 300 picofarad. Well, ain't that the duck's guts? Yeah, this is some of the fun of managing this complicated of a build, is trying to figure out. I might have put like on the FET board or something. No, that's 100 picofarad. Where did I put it? I don't see one. I don't think there's anyone else on the other boards there. Was I just dumb and ordered one? I did order one. It just says one right on it. So, the point of coupling those is something that I am also not completely sure of, but it also seems like it could potentially be a form of feedback, because the anode and cathode are, at that point, opposite phase from each other, so it may be kind of canceling a specific frequency. I don't know the tolerance of like a 270 versus a 300. I have a 300 picofarad one, and so I have a 300 picofarad one here. I will use it, I guess, and we'll see if for some reason I find it sounding awful. I will have to go back and sort that out, but why not me? I'm using a ground in mine. Don't know how that will work out. 10 gauge bare wire. On my ground to accept 110 cord ground, which is 2 transformer bolt. Yeah, the 110 you definitely, and I will actually. There's a warning about that. That a lot of old construction used to use the transformer bolt, but there is actually now most regulations in, let's say, Europe and other kind of countries mandate you cannot put the ground. The earth is what it is actually, not just ground, but that green wire, you cannot put that to the transformer bolt, because transformers are heavier and they do vibrate and they do shake. Over time, that transformer bolt can kind of wiggle loose and allow corrosion and stuff to get in and reduce the ability for that to protect you. That's the point of the earth. So I would say it's wiser, if you can, to drill a hole in the chassis somewhere else and then connect or solder it to the chassis somewhere else. But I think that a lot of the regulations now require it's actually a bolt through the chassis, cranked down with a shake-proof washer of some kind. So that's just something I've learned from a lot of foreign reading and whatnot. It works, but it can over time go bad, and that is dangerous. So got another one of these guys to quickly get. Okay, that seems pretty quiet, but I see a little bit of a flex there. Let's try this other side. I might have done this wrong last time. Let's see. No, that's the... Oh, I see what's going on there. I might have done that last one wrong. Let's see here. It's about the same. I don't know, that one's pretty close. All right, so sorry, I'm just trying to check these. With these little picofarad level capacitors, I quite often find it hard to actually see a difference. But so I think I'll be okay with this guy. I'm not seeing a difference either direction. All right, so for this one, that means that pins, let me go back to the other view here. So between pins 1, 3, and 6 and... All right, wait, yeah, 6 and 8. I'm going to jumper these. So this guy will go here. And then similarly, I think I'll have to clean a little bit of solder flux up, but similar. Oop, there went my drill. Sorry. So the series I'm using, they're not 6Ps, they're 715Ps, I think they are. And some people have told me that Dumble actually did use more like the 6 series, like you're talking about 6, like I think it's like 6Ps, yeah, something like that. But yeah, so if you look, on these guys. These are CDE Cornell Doublier, and it says 715P. I don't know if that's readable. Let me put it under the light there. Oh, of course the light might be washing it out, but 715Ps. All right. Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna do. I don't need solder. I need a little solder on here. I gotta turn my fan back on. Get my solder wick out. I have to snip a little bit of that solder wick. It's getting long and crusty here. All right. Alright, those are all cleaned out. Okie dokie. Oh, thanks, JDOXO. Trill smear versus toppy, huh? Yeah, that's one of those things that I think part of the problem with that is also everybody's ears are a little different, and some people might really like that and others won't too, right? And so it's really based upon every single person is probably going to have a little different response to that, and some people might absolutely hate it like you do, or maybe not, you don't hate it, but you're not as fond of it, and other people will love it. But we will see how it turns out. I built quite a few amps myself with the 715s. I've also built some with the like smaller yellow style ones, and maybe because I've been in the military and lost hearing, it's not as noticeable to me too. But so yeah, thanks for that feedback though. All right, where did I put the other one now? And I think these capacitors in this spot, these are designed to help with the drive channel be more manageable. Where's my pliers? I thought I cleared that hole out. I didn't. It's still blocked. Let's try that again. I'm like, why wouldn't it go in there? There we go. Now we're clear. Yep, and that would be, that would be kind of a cool experiment. Is one of the things I wish I had a lot of money, because if I had a lot of money, I would do experiments where I built 2 identical amps, with the exceptions of things like that, but everything else about the circuit was identical, and then see how those sounded. What was the difference? All right, so those guys are connected up. 68K. I know I had that in here somewhere. Probably shoved it around on accident. There it is. Here's my 68K. And we got some nice RN65s for a lot of these kind of things. I wish I could get a good collection of RN65s for everything. But all right, so it's gonna be in 2. Alrighty, that one's good and connected as well. Those will not be soldered until I actually hook stuff up later, but I will solder that connection in because that's all that goes into that point, so I can at least get half of that connection done. Once I drop the board in, I'll be finishing up a lot of these connections, as you know, but for now I'm just trying to, because this will be tight placement with the board and everything in, I'm trying to get some of these done first before I get there. Alright, I think that's good. Oh, that was the wrong one. That would be, oh, it's alright, I'll have to fix that a little later, but I have to get my angle right. Gotta get my tongue at the right angle, right? As EEV Blogs Dave says all the time. This is the one I wanted to. There we go. Okay. I can't do the 180 until I find one. We'll sort that out later. So that is the bulk of what we're going to do with those sockets. So the other thing I wanted to do is try and work on these relays. I've pulled the actual relays out. I don't know if I can maybe rotate this guy just a little bit. Yeah, there we go. All right. So the relays, one of the things that I have to kind of figure out, actually, let's see, decisions. Actually, no, I think the other thing I wanted to look at doing, and I'm getting short of my time, I think, is the, oh, is that what I wanted? Sorry about that. I might actually try and do these guys, because I've got that wired up here, and I can kind of connect these all in, and I've got these guys, so I will potentially do that. So the way this works here is that we've got, there's two of these capacitors that will go in kind of like this and be connected into some points through that guy, and I'll probably give them a little bit of angle away, but I have to connect them into several of these leads, and they'll also be bringing leads off of the board and whatnot into those, and then those will connect over to the different pins of this guy. I think I don't know, the only thing I don't know is I might not be able to guess I have to kind of try and see if I can find the data sheet on these, because I don't remember which pin is which, so that might be something that I can't really do right now either. I'm putting two channels. Oh, you're going to put, are they going to be identical channels, or are they going to be two different channels voiced differently as well? I'm trying to think of what I should try and address here. I guess I can still, let me think, I can put in capacitors through both sides of the leads and solder the one side so they're in place, so it's at least the starting point, and then I can kind of figure from there, because they basically, and these guys are worried about signal, by the way. They can be as noisy as they want. They're just on the switching side, so they're what puts the 12 volts to the reeds, so they don't have any impact on the actual noise of the signal. So but one of these switches will be the overdrive, and one of them will be the preamp boost disabling feature. Two voiced differently. Okay, so that, to me, that's part of the problem of. I think your idea is really good. You'll still see that hear some difference, but because the channel itself sounds different, you're not getting an apples to apples comparison. And I'm kind of one of those sciencey engineering nerds. I like to have no variables different, if you will. So to me, it would be kind of cool to have either, like you said, a preamp that was designed with two channels but that are identical, but that you use the different capacitors so you can kind of hear the difference, or something like that. Another thing, I want to try and do some more. I'm going to be demoing this guy when I do it. I'm going to probably practice an idea that I had, which is demo a riff that I like in my looper, and then leave it looping, and then switch some configurations, and you'll hear the exact same riff but in different configurations, so that it's not focusing just on what's the word? You can actually play differently on accident if your amp is responding to you differently as well, I think. Unintentionally, it becomes easier to play certain settings and harder on others because of the way it sounds. So I'm just trying to look at that, and I might even just blow this up a bit for everybody to see a little bit better, but this is what I'm working on. That's really, really low res and crap, but so what I'll do is I'm going to put those two capacitors in, and I'm trying to decide which one would be preamp boost and which one would be OD. I think I want OD to be the rightmost one here. So the OD goes on the bottom two. So I will I think I might need to use a little bit of cleaning on this guy too. Let's get the oops, no. What I want is my solder wick. Where did I put it? There it is. Alright. Clean out these turkeys. Oh, I gotta snip the end off of that. It's getting too long again. Oh, come on. I'm not getting it up against right. There we go. Well, that smells horrible. Alright, I think I've got those cleared out. Nope, I don't. Alright, well what I'll do is I will kind of just do the more painful way, and that's to slide it in while it's hot. There we go. There we go. Now I will solder those in very carefully. I'm going to want to adjust the top part after I get the bottom one soldered, because the bottom one is in perfect place. Let that cool. I won't solder the other side, I'll just leave it through, because I'm going to be connecting some, junctions there on the overdrive side, the other half. But let me now kind of gently pull this top guy through a little bit more. Oh, I gotta be careful, I burn my... Alright. Here we go. And then we'll repeat this process to the other side, but it goes kind of to the top two instead of the bottom two. That means I've got to clean those too. Okie dokie. Let's get this one. And I'm going to have to kind of bend it carefully as far away as I can. And one of the things you do not want to do is do too much lead bending back and forth, because that will lead to them breaking, and then you have a dead capacitor and you're going to be sad. Luckily on this guy, the top two hadn't been used before, so they're wide open. All right, perfect. Just solder these in, which you can't see because you're on the back side of me, but all right. So these guys are now set up where I wanted them here. They will then be able to be kind of glued together, and they do look a little odd on height-wise because I have them set. If you look in the actual picture, they're kind of, he did them beautifully. I will at least have them there. I'll put a little bit of dollop of glue in there. All right, I'm actually going to have to take some time to try and figure out which pins are where first on this. I don't want to do that wrong. So before I take that on, I'm going to have to think about that. But that also means that I'm well past my hour point. I don't know that it is too exciting for people to have to hang out much longer than an hour. I don't know if people would be interested in me continuing. I'll give people a second to kind of think about that answer if you're still watching along. Looks like I've got about 4 people right now. Let me know if you think longer than an hour is going to be okay, because I think people will also come back and watch this later and they may not be as interested in watching a whole hour straight. I know that for me, anything gets longer than an hour starts becoming things I skip a whole lot anyway. But at any rate, I'm going to be trying to do some of the relay work. I'm just trying to finish everything that I can before I put the board in. So also I'm waiting on these two here as well. As I mentioned, these two are coming in the mail. And then I'll be able to kind of hook them in and wire up anything that I need to on all these guys, and connecting, any wires underneath like I've done with this guy as well, before I actually do the board drop. But then the board will drop in and we'll start doing the, plugging everything that's last together. I was hoping to be done this week. This week just got really away from me from work stuff. So we will hopefully be able to get this guy done pretty soon. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, Phenom. As I get to the hour, I'm starting to get a little tired. It's a little bit long, and I also, whatever I've prepped is starting to run out. So I've actually got more to do today that I prepped, and I'll probably do it and then film it and then upload it this week. But I'm going to do the relay pretty soon here. One of the things I kind of want to show in the video where I have time to prep it is I'm going to also show if I supply the 12 volts to the relay, you'll hear it popping and seeing that going. So we'll get that possibly in the video as well. Run out of solder, that sucks. You're very welcome. I'm sharing what I know, and I'm also learning a lot myself all the time. I think it's pretty interesting to me how much showing people things also teaches you, because you don't realize you're not thinking about things correctly, and talking about it out loud will all of a sudden kind of trigger something in your head. So thanks very much for joining along this time around again, guys, and we will see you on the next video and live stream. So the notices, I think the way that works is if you're subscribed, it doesn't guarantee you always get all notifications. So what you need to do to get notifications is you go into, there's like a little bell icon on my thing where you see where I've subscribed. That, if you click that, that will then always send you out all notifications every time. Otherwise, YouTube has some algorithm where they decide whether they think you'd be interested or not. So, yeah, what I might do for you, Phenom, because I see you all the time, is I can actually send messages via YouTube, so I might try to just send you a message directly or you an email. But I don't think I have a memory in my brain to remember to do that to everybody. So, yeah, just make sure you do that. You click subscribe to the channel. If you already have, great. If not, please click subscribe and then click the bell, and you get every single notification of every video I post. You did? Really? That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe... normally, especially when I create a new live stream, it should fire off a notification to everybody that's subscribed and has that bell clicked. So maybe it's getting thrown to junk. Well, that's funny. I don't know if it would be junk mail because Google is Gmail and is YouTube, so they own both. But that would be funny if it was getting sent to the junk folder. But I'll try and see if I can remember to fire you an email about any of these live streams that are coming up. All right. And a heads up, people that are on this, I might start. I think I might change it to Thursdays in the evening, so that people can. I think it really depends. We'll see, but my first video that I did like this, I had done it on a weeknight for fun as a trial, and I got a lot of people. And then I've done them on the weekends since, and it tends to be a little bit smaller group. And that's not the end of the world to me, but I'm just more trying to be more available to more people. So, and if you really like this Saturday, please do let me know as well. But thanks again, everybody. Have a great one, and we will talk to you on the next video. Cheers. Come on, Matt. There we go.